You probably have a garden for the food that you can harvest and eat, or maybe you have a garden with flowers that you can cut and look at. But have you ever thought about having a garden for seeds? There are many reasons why that can be a good idea. Join me today as I share with you some thoughts about gardening for seeds. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and I'm sitting on the edge of one of my seed beds. Now, this is a normal garden bed, and these are normal garden plants, but I've let these plants go to seed. These are the ones that I started in spring, and I've had a lot of harvest, primarily salad crops in this bed. But every year, I try to let at least one of my beds grow through the summer and go to seed. There are many reasons why I think this is a good idea. First off, you can save the seeds and replant them if it's an open pollinated or heirloom variety and get the same plants year after year. Some of these seeds are edible. They're great to use in different dishes in the kitchen. They're also edible for a lot of wildlife. So I let these seeds remain, and the birds love to eat a lot of them. For those of you that get busy or summer comes on too quickly, well, it's easy to just let one of your beds go and go to seed. But the big reason why I like to do this every year is because of the educational value. I always learn something new about the plants I go to seed. And every year I try to intentionally grow new plants to see what kind of seeds they produce. In this bed, I'm still harvesting Swiss chard and some hardy lettuce along with kale, but I let some of the radishes go to seed. I harvested a bunch of the radishes in this bed, but then the hot weather set in and the remaining radishes began to bolt. I wanted to save some radish seed this year anyway, so these plants have gone to seed. I think radishes are a good plant to start with if you're new to saving seeds. They grow very quickly. They have a really nice flower that the pollinators like. And then they begin setting these pods. And in each of these pods are typically 3 to 5 or 6 seeds. I'll let them dry on the plant and then pop open these pods, save the seeds, and I'm all ready for another radish crop. This year, I also grew daikon radishes in this seed bed. And I've grown daikon radishes before, but I've never let them flower and set seed. So this was one of the new crops for me this year to see how the seed pods on the daikon radish compare to the seed pods on the cherry bell radish. The daikon is a bigger radish than the cherry bell, and it's a little surprising to me, but it shouldn't be, that the seed pods on the daikon radishes are also quite a bit bigger than the seed pods on the smaller radish. So this is quite a good education for me. And I can also see that there will be a lot more seeds. Assuming I've got one in each of these little segments, it looks like I've got 8 or 9 seeds in each of these pods, which is more than I typically get in the other radish varieties. On the end of this seed bed, I have some of my salad crops. I have a mesclun lettuce mix, a lot of different types of lettuces. And right next to that, I grew mustard, and then next to that, I grew endive or endive. And as I would harvest, I'd grab a little bit of this and a little bit of the other and make some delicious salads because all of the flavors of the leaves are unique, even though they look quite similar. But by allowing the plants to go to seed, it's amazing how different they are with the way that they set seed. The lettuces have all grown a stalk and then begin to flower and set seed on the top of the plant. And it really doesn't matter what kind of lettuce it is, they're all doing the same basic growth pattern, setting the seeds at the top. But the mustard is similar to the way the radish grows. It sets a seed pod. And as I've learned, because I keep trying to collect mustard seed each year, these are one of those pods that as soon as the seeds are ready, it will actually burst open to disperse the seeds. So you have to act quickly to save seeds. So for the most part, I just let the birds land on these plants and eat all of the mustard seed. But I was most surprised by the endive. It sets seeds much more like a spinach plant, where the seed will set all the way along the stem. And it is a beautiful blue flower. So when this section of the bed was completely in flower, it really was beautiful to look at. But I would have never guessed that what I've always thought of as a salad crop and expected to seed like a lettuce instead is much closer to a spinach. A plant that I really recommend that you grow and then allow to flower and set seed is broccoli. I find broccoli to be quite educational because I think a lot of gardeners just don't understand how it grows. This head that we usually harvest and eat is made up of what will become flowers and seeds. So if we just allow it to go to seed, you'll see that it starts with the yellow flowers, and each of these little parts of the broccoli plant will turn into a flower, and then those flowers will turn into little seed pods. And in each of these pods we'll have broccoli seed. The process of letting some of your vegetables flower and then go to seed is quite easy. You just stop harvesting those plants. And during the heat of summer, it's going to occur naturally in just about all of the plants. I grow a lot of basil, and it's too much to actually harvest and use because I have it all over my garden. So in some of the beds, like this one, I'll intentionally let it flower and go to seed. First off, I think it's beautiful when it's in flower, but while it's flowering, it's attracting a multitude of pollinators. Pollinators that will benefit my entire garden. And then when these plants do set seed, well, I never need to buy basil seed again. And like the radishes, I can see a difference in the way that the different basils flower. This is a completely different color, and each of these flower stalks is shorter and denser than the one on the other end of this bed. And the basil growing here is a completely different variety as well, and its flowers aren't purple, but white. This is one of those things that to me just shows the magic of gardening, when you can find these little surprises, like basil has different colored flowers based on the variety. I just think that's incredible. I let a lot of my herbs go to seed. I've already harvested this bed a couple times. I have a whole bunch of dried herbs in my pantry, and so I'm letting the sage flower and go to seed, and it's a beautiful purple flower. I already did it with one of the other plants on the other side, and for the first time I'm letting my tarragon go to seed, and this is also a bit of a surprise. It's a very small yellow flower, but this plant is filled with thousands of seeds, future potential plants. So I never need to buy these particular herbs ever again. I also like to let some of my mint flower and seed as well. I just think it's a beautiful color, and it does such a great job attracting pollinators to the garden. I'm letting all of the flowers in my pollinator garden set seed this year. That will help spread these flowers throughout this space. I chose specific flowers, and of course I want more of them. I did the same thing last year with these petunias. I did not put these petunias here this year. Instead, the petunias that I had last year set seed, and now I've got petunias all the way around this little wildlife pond. You may think that essentially I've wasted this bed as far as my summer growing is concerned. I could have had a lot of other plants growing here, but I've got a lot of other beds to grow my summer plants. I really like what I've discovered in this bed. And sure, I could have had a couple salad crops that set seed, a couple broccolis that set seed, but I just find a whole bed setting seed at about the same time is one of those things that adds a different kind of beauty to the garden and gives the opportunity to learn a lot more about the life cycle of these plants and how quickly they'll flower and set seed. I'll still have time to collect seeds, pull these plants, and grow another short series of plants going into the autumn. So I really haven't lost that much. Instead, I think I've actually gained quite a bit by letting my plants flower, set seed, and then really expand my gardening knowledge. And that's why I suggest you consider doing the same. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.